going on, everybody? It's Tim. You're here at Stock Picks by Tim, and today I want to talk about Cleanspark and their monthly update. It did just drop yesterday. I was unaware. Typically it drops, the 3rd, 4th, or 5th. We got it here on the 2nd, surprisingly. So I'm going to get into that. I'm going to give you some numbers, and I'm going to give you my outlook on next earnings, what they're going to get for revenue. I do think Cleanspark will continue to present great buying opportunities over the next 3 months or so. But let's get right into it and see how they did for mining. Now, we're going to get into the production for May. We're also going to get into April, and I'm going to give you my thoughts here on what their earnings is going to look like. Now, I'm a bit short-term bearish. However, long-term, of course, I'm very high convicted on this one. And it's almost like playing Bitcoin with leverage when you get into something like this. When Bitcoin gets very bullish and the sentiment is positive, Cleanspark is going to outperform. But when Bitcoin is bearish and the sentiment is negative, Cleanspark will underperform compared. But getting into our numbers here, they did sell 210 Bitcoin in May, an average of about 32,600. So that looks like a pretty wise decision so far. Their sales gave them about 6.9 million, let's just call it 7 million. And their Bitcoin production reached a high of about 10.69 to be exact. So one thing I want you to get out of this is they did produce 312 Bitcoin. They only sold 210, and their current Bitcoin holdings is 550. Now let's compare that to the previous month. In April, they sold 285 Bitcoin at an average of almost $42,000 per Bitcoin, which got them close to 12 million, 11.9. Let's call it 12. The other quarter was 7. So essentially, they got roughly 19 million in Bitcoin sales so far for this quarter. We're not talking about the next month, obviously, and we're also not talking about their energy side of things. But you'll see that their total Bitcoin holdings over time is steadily increasing. April, they had 448. And as you just saw, as of May 31, they have 550. So that is a nice increase in Bitcoin over time. They do seem to be accumulating. I do like their strategy. Yes, this is definitely, in my opinion, going to hurt their next earnings in terms of revenue. And it might be a lower revenue. It might be the first quarter that we've actually seen lower revenue, which that's why I'm short-term bearish on this, and I can definitely see this coming down. And even looking at our last earnings on May 10th, you'll see that we got 41.6 million. We barely missed, but what I was really concerned with was that we wouldn't break this 41.2, that we wouldn't be lower than that. So that's my whole reasoning that this next earnings isn't going to be all that spectacular. So far, we literally have under $20 million in terms of Bitcoin sales. You do have to think, of course, they're able to hold more on their balance sheet, and because of Bitcoin's price, likely they are kind of being more standoffish in terms of selling their Bitcoin, which I do like their strategy. But that being said, that doesn't change the fact that this can be lackluster in terms of their revenue. So far, our next earnings, Bitcoin, I would say, has to drastically rise for them to sell enough to break this 41, to get at least 42 million in revenue. I personally wouldn't be surprised if this next earnings they get around 35 million, if not less, in revenue, and that will likely scare Wall Street. But for us, what is that? It's a buying opportunity. Because long term, I do believe in the trajectory of this one. And just because of a lackluster earnings, because of Bitcoin's price, that doesn't change the fact that they are continuing to mine more and more Bitcoin per day. It doesn't change the fact that they have prepaid miners continuing to come in. It doesn't change the fact that they have their Lancium deal coming up, and that will continue to increase the exahash. So in the end with Cleanspark, it's definitely going to be a mid to long term game. And also, I really quickly wanted to look at Bitcoin here. Now, looking at Bitcoin, it does look like recently we have been creating new lower lows. We did break out of our trend here, and we may again become range bound in this channel, this roughly 28.5 to 30,006. We kind of are right back in this channel. And again, we established a resistance here at that 30,006. So we're going to have to break out of that again. I personally think Bitcoin can continue down, and honestly over the next 6 months to even a year, we do have quite a ways until that next halving, and we're kind of in that no man's land over the next 6 months to about a year, even you could argue a little bit longer. But just be aware, we're less than 2 years away from the next halving, and historically, look through history, this has always caused a huge spike in Bitcoin's price. It is simple supply and demand economics. But how are you guys feeling about Cleanspark's recent mining update? And what's your current sentiment on Bitcoin? I'm really curious. But that's all for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a good weekend.